All right, I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Noor. I'm head of growth at the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. We are a nonprofit that starts university accredited blockchain courses. We've been building projects, connecting our members to opportunities in the industry, building courses, placing people at jobs. And what I love the most about BAF is that we are governed by the leaders of our affiliated university blockchain clubs. I am the president of the blockchain club at University of Rochester, and blockchain clubs acceleration is something we love working on at BAF. So yeah, BAF is super happy to host this week's Twitter Space. Today we're gonna dive into building communities in Web3. Our goal for this community conversation is to pass on our learnings, mistakes, stories to people interested in breaking into Web3 and more specifically breaking into community building in the space. I would like to welcome our amazing speakers, Alicia from ENS and Jackson from Rainbow. I personally look up to you guys a lot. Love your work. Love ENS. Love Rainbow. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, let's dive in. Everyone in the space is building community and is trying to integrate a crypto component in what they do. So how about we start there? What does community mean to you guys? And I want to give more space to Alicia and Jackson here because you guys have a lot of experience and a lot of thoughts to share. So yeah, how does community fit into Web3? Tell us about your story. How did you break into the space, and how does building community in Web3? How is it unique? How is it different compared to other industries? So yeah,
I I
I
feel like
can pass it on to
Dame.eth has to
Alicia.
go. Oh, I was going to say, I feel like Dame.eth has to go first here because I feel like Dame's journey informed my journey, and like a lot of the anchor points I have for onboarding into Web3 are directly from reading, um, Dame.eth's mirror and blog and tweets, and so
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
totally. I can jump in. Wow, where to begin? I mean, really, I was working in traditional tech world for quite some time, doing, marketing and design and a whole host of other things. But over time, I just got kind of, burnt out and tired of that industry and that work. It wasn't very fulfilling. It was very corporate. It was very just inhuman feeling. Um, and I decided to quit my job at a tech company and take a few months off. And during that time, I started like really diving deep into this idea of blockchain technology and crypto and all these things. I had sort of written them off for many, many years because I didn't really relate to all the headlines and news stories that I saw. It was all very like, I kind of took it at face value and sort of uh, believed the stereotypes about the industry. I just thought it was a bunch of like finance bros, crypto, like Bitcoin people, and I just kind of like avoided it. But after like giving it a bit more time and actually researching it and trying to understand what was going on, I discovered there was amazing stuff happening in the space, that it was very like just like interesting and innovative, and it actually stood a chance for helping make the internet a better place, which is something I'm really passionate about. Um, so yeah. Anyways, I started going down that rabbit hole just on weekends and during the days, reading articles and researching. Uh, I discovered quickly that you were gonna have to have a wallet in order to really do many things in the crypto space. So I started looking for a wallet to download, um, and I stumbled upon Rainbow. I had heard about it a little bit on Twitter. A few of the folks that I follow had tweeted about it. They're artists in the space, and then I had also just seen it on the Ethereum Foundation's website and under their list of wallets. And all of the wallets that I had seen just were all very kind of like technical looking and not very friendly and welcoming. But Rainbow was like totally different. It looked really easy to use and something that was very friendly. And so, yeah, I fell in love with the app and started using it a bunch as I learned about all these different things, as I dove into these NFT communities, as I really just embedded myself in the ecosystem. I was using Rainbow the whole time, and I started thinking about potentially wanting to, join one of these companies or protocols full time to work here. And I during that time I was like live tweeting sort of how I learned and what I was doing. I started a blog on Mirror, lots of these different things. I was just very public about my journey with it. And throughout that time, I was also like very kind of involved as a user of Rainbow. Like I was in sort of the wider community of Rainbow users, and I was making memes about Rainbow and tweeting tips and my experiences with the Rainbow app. And so one day I just was like, why, I should just like direct message the founders of the company and see if they would want to hire me to do some of this stuff for them full time. And sure enough, they got back to me immediately, and they weren't hiring at the time, but they saw something in me and decided it was worth hiring me. And so yeah, I've been really just focused upon kind of being really embedded in the Web3 community, being, kind of like an educator, helping people onboard into the space and providing like content and resources to help community members navigate the space more easily, because it can definitely be a little tricky sometimes. But yeah, the thing I love about Web3 is just how how focused it is on community. There's just, in no other industry and space that I've been in has the concept of community been so central to pretty much everything that we do. And that has pros and cons to it, but for the most part, I love it. And yeah, I don't know. I love this space for that fact.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I watched Dame.eth's journey in real time, and when I kind of came into the space in February, March last year, the first thing, actually I feel like how perfectly aligned the dots connected with Rainbow for Dame. That's how I felt with ENS. So when I kind of came into the space in February, March, after like having known about Bitcoin since 2014 and 15, but not really finding my place in this with this idea of like a financialized version of crypto and trading and all that stuff. I suck at trading, like I'm the worst. And so the first thing I did was one of the first things I did was look for my ENS name, and Alisha.eth just happened to have expired by the person who registered it in 2017. And so it was coming down on the premium auction. And I actually waited a couple of days because I didn't really have a lot of context for ENS, and it was coming down. It was coming down from $2,000. I think I waited until it got to $500, and then I was just like, okay, I think I will definitely regret this if I don't if I don't get this and it's available. And I can't believe that was just not even 12 months ago. It's crazy to think how far ENS has come in that time. So I got Alisha.eth without kind of knowing anything, especially being someone I would say who's like non-technical in the space. It's really hard to sometimes figure out. And at that point, I would say I was definitely not a content creator. I didn't tweet. I was on Twitter, but I didn't really engage in the platform and things like that. So changing my Twitter name, my Twitter display name to Alisha.eth was kind of the first thing I did to signal to people that I was like, here, I was interested in Web3. I didn't know what that meant really at the time, but kind of through my involvement with Kernel, which is a Web3 learning community, and just like a few things happened around like April, May. One of those, I can see that Nada is in the space and Developer DAO's in the space, and Nat is someone that I had been following in Web2 with Jamstack websites with his time at AWS. And as soon as I saw Nata announce that he was going to be doing like DevRel stuff at Edge and Node, I was just like, wait, this is a really big deal. And I don't know if Nata can request to speak, but it was actually one of the moments where it really kind of legitimized Web3 for me. I think as someone who can understand the tech, but is not technical. It was such a huge signal to me to see someone that I've respected over like a long period of time to like move into the space. And then what happened was, I started Kernel Block 3, and at like a week after that, I decided to start a podcast. I started just like sliding into DMs. I would say that having no shame and being super random are two traits that serve me really well in this space. And I really just did it because something that I kind of always think about in Web3 that served me, but I think it's maybe like a broader life lesson, which is that like if you just do the thing without expectation, and you do it genuinely because you want to learn or you want to grow or it's like for your development, it's really easy for you to be consistent and sustainable with that thing. And I kind of think that when you're consistent with, content creation on the internet, insane stuff happens. But it's just about finding, whatever it is that is consistent for you. So basically the way I looked at the podcast is I am a newcomer. I don't know anyone. I have no context. If I get to talk to one or two people a week and have that conversation and build like a relationship, that's totally worth it for me, irrespective of kind of what comes out of it. So I was doing that. I was kind of cranking episodes for a couple of months. And then in August, I DM'd Nick Johnson, who's the founder of ENS, and I asked him to come on the pod. And I think we just really hit it off, and we really vibed and had a great conversation. Even though I would say that Nick is like, probably the most technically gifted person I've ever spoken to. And I am probably definitely at the other end of whatever that spectrum is for him. And the fact that we were able to just like get on so well and have a really great conversation about ENS, I don't know, it's just lots of fun and really surprising. But again, I think it's that no expectation thing. And then after that, he just asked me what I was doing. He encouraged me to apply for the community manager role. At that point, I didn't even know what the role was. I think, apart from Dame.eth, there weren't that many community managers. I don't know, Dame, what do you think? Like in August, September last year, did it seem like a really novel thing to have a community manager in Web3?
I I think we were in this weird, we're like last year was also kind of this weird like transition of people, more and more people starting to like conceptualize all this stuff as Web3. Like Web3 like as a term, it's sort of been used by some folks for several years, like Chris Dixon and others had been using it, but I don't feel like it really started taking off till last year. So you kind of had like, I feel like in the world of decentralized finance, DeFi, I do feel like community managers were definitely a thing there, but like as you started like branching out from there, I don't know. I think as the NFT world took off, as ENS blew up, as Rainbow blew up, like all these different things sort of happened. Like it just became really apparent like how big of a need there was there. Yeah, so I don't know. I've tweeted in the past about just like how you know community is such a big part of each of these like protocols and projects here. To me it's kind of interesting that like we only typically like hire one community manager for these places, even though it's such a central thing to it all. But yeah, it's a whole nother story conversation.
Yeah, I think as well, when I kind of was exposed to this idea of a community manager, I also didn't have a lot of context for Discord. Obviously, I'm like very intimately aware of how everything to do with Discord now. But I thought that a lot of the role was, say, like content creation, and I guess I just like didn't really have an understanding. But I think that also kind of worked out well because I wasn't attached to anything. I'm like pretty big on this idea of detachment as well, and so when I started the role, the team was like just starting thinking about decentralizing to a DAO. And so I was very involved in that process. And then the DAO launched in November, and I've since been really involved in that process. And now I kind of say like community and governance, I think potentially could have been thought of as different things, but I think to the idea that community is the foundation of Web3, if governance is what we're doing, then I think in a way, like in a big way, community and governance are the same, like in the same bucket. And so that is what a lot of my time is spent doing at the moment. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you guys just mentioned. What Alicia just said about being random and shooting your shot, that's something I personally take to heart. I started my Web3 journey writing blogs for freelance, just for like pocket money. And then I didn't know like how powerful that butterfly effect is. Like people just see you online, see you on Twitter, and then they tell you about their projects and what they're building. And it is very random. Like the space is insane. Just like thinking about, for example, Constitution DAO and how they got so many people to raise like how much, 3 million or something to buy a copy of the Constitution. That really shows like the power of the internet and people coming together. So yeah, community is a critical part of Web3. And today I really want to unpack with you guys what role can community builders play in this exciting future. The word community to me means sharing value with those who create it. And in Web3, this is different from how we used to monetize products in the past on the back of users. In Web3, you are sharing value with those who create it in form of ownership or tokens. So when you're thinking of designing community for these different verticals, whether it's NFTs, DeFi, DAOs, etc., these can be different archetypes, and community looks different across all of these. It is very relative to the project. So I really want to know more about what community looks like for ENS and for Rainbow, and what does your day to day look like as a community manager. And I really want to hear the crazy stories and how do you not go crazy, you know? So yeah, Alisha has
Definitely
you
no
could
one
tell
said
me.
we weren't crazy for sure, especially like this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, something that I think I tried to figure this out myself, and kind of an analogy that really helps me think about a community for ENS is that when I registered my name, I knew that in Web3, like people jump into the Discord, that's synonymous with community for a lot of in a lot of Web3, and I noticed that Validated.eth, who is in the audience, so shout out to Validated.eth, who is kind of the OG ENS fairy and just like an incredible, just like a staple in the ENS ecosystem that has impacted so many people's ENS experience. So Validated.eth was in the Discord offering support, and I didn't need support. I had my name, and so I kind of didn't know what else I was meant to do in the Discord, and so I kind of just bounced out actually until I got the role. And then I realized that the way that I think about especially community within ENS, was for me, it was taking the Discord from being a hospital to a home. And so, a hospital is somewhere where you go when you're injured, somewhere something's broken, and you need it fixed, which is just like getting support. And it's not to say that the hospital area of our Discord is still like really significant, and it's a big part of what we do. But there's also, yeah, this idea of creating a home within Discord, which is like, what are the qualities of home? It's like somewhere where you feel like you belong, you identify with, you can just like have space, you have this sense of belonging, you can find like-minded people, you can kind of work and grow and like do all of these things. And yeah, so I guess on a day-to-day basis, and especially kind of at the start of my community manager journey, I worked really hard to think about how to create spaces within Discord, and now kind of thinking about that with the governance forum to allow people to just like live and be human without needing to be broken.
Wow, I love that. That was really good, Alicia. Yeah, it's interesting. I think Rainbow's sense of community is, or like the way Rainbow like embodies community is kind of, it's quite a bit different than I feel like, I guess, the stereotype of what most people think of in community in this space. Like there is kind of like, the norm in the space is, a company or a protocol or project will have a Discord server, and that Discord server is kind of considered like the central hub in the community for that project. Um, Rainbow actually doesn't have a Discord community whatsoever, which is a kind of a surprise to a lot of people. In fact, every week I have people DMing me questions about our Discord, and about the way we build it and manage it. And then I have to go and tell them that actually we don't have a Discord. We don't, manage one, because they just assume that we do. So yeah, we've definitely taken a much different approach here in the sense of, Rainbow is also a very different kind of product than a lot of these other things. ENS is a very different. ENS is a domain, like an identity and sort of naming service, whereas Rainbow is an Ethereum wallet. And Rainbow is it's when I first started there, it was community at that time was we had like a very kind of dedicated sort of cult following on Twitter. Like we had a lot of people that were just big fans of us. We've never really done any marketing or anything for Rainbow. It's always just been very word of mouth, people just talking and sharing with it with their friends. So it kind of naturally created this like tight-knit group of people who followed us on Twitter and who, loved us and tweeted about us all the time. And instead of immediately, like when I jumped into this role, I think I was like the seventh or eighth, like there were only like 8 other employees at the time. We weren't doing a whole lot. And so when I first started, it was very much doing things like running our Twitter account, writing educational content for our users. It was, responding to our fans on Twitter. It was answering questions people had on Twitter. Our support, like our only sense of like customer support that we provided to people really was through Twitter at the time. And so, it was at the time we didn't have a large sort of volume of support requests. So like it was something that I could sort of, it was more like of a community nature to it. Like when people come to a wallet app initially, they're brand new to this space usually. And so the like customer support at Rainbow often at that time did not really look like traditional customer support. It looked more like welcoming someone into this giant ecosystem and like shepherding them and like showing them around, which is showing them around into the wider community. And so as we've grown, we now have a customer support team, and so they're now dedicated to some of that kind of stuff. But like as my role has grown here, it's been a lot more around the realm of making Rainbow like a pivotal and like core member of the wider community. So whereas traditional community managers and a lot of companies in this space are all about sort of like managing and nourishing a community space that the company or project owns and controls. Rainbow doesn't actually have a space that we own and control, and instead, like a lot of what I'm doing is going out into the wider community and being a part of the wider community, kind of like a brand ambassador to some degree. Like I host weekly Twitter spaces on our Twitter account for our users to come to. They can bring their friends to it. It's like a learning session. I do live events. I go into podcasts. I'm on Twitter constantly, responding to people, helping people, giving talks whenever someone invites someone from our team, if no one else is available. Doing all those kinds of things. Even like it ties in to some degree to what Alicia does, because we often one of the things we do at Rainbow is we sometimes buy people's ENS domains for them, like some more like well-known people within the space. We buy their ENS domains for them and then hand them off to them for free as a gift as people are coming into the space. And that sometimes that it's just maybe like semi well-known designers within the industry. Other times it's like celebrities and having to transfer an ENS domain to a celebrity and trying to give them like a very great experience and positive warm welcome into the ecosystem. So yeah, it definitely looks a little bit different here. But I do think as we grow, like we'll continue to evolve what we think about when we think about community. We are considering, opening up a little community space for ourselves finally. But it probably will not look like, like a Discord server. It'll probably look like a more intimate sort of private community at first, at least as we're working through that. But yeah, it's kind of a sketch of what it looks like from day to day for me.
Cool, love that. I love the Twitter spaces that both of you organize. That's actually how I discovered you guys on Twitter, because you guys do like some beginner friendly office hours, and I get to like listen to people ask questions that I'm sometimes embarrassed of asking. Sometimes I would shoot my shot and I'd be like, "Hey Dame, do you want to co-organize a Twitter space?" And then Dame says yes, and I'm like, "Okay, I didn't expect that." So Twitter spaces are some really special places where magic can happen. So, oh, this actually inspired me to start a office hours initiative at BAF for us
Oh my
to
gosh, I love
also.
that.
Yeah, I love it. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Dame
Um,
definitely started that for me as well. When I saw Rainbow Officers, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We need this too.
the number of other brands that I've seen start doing office hours over the last few months has been amazing. I love seeing it. Like I don't know, I think that's a really cool, like these live audio spaces are just, I don't know, they create such a magical sort of intimate environment that really makes you feel like you are in a community. I don't know, whenever, like, I spent a lot of time last year hanging out in Discord servers of other projects. Um and some of them were really great and some of them were nice, but you never quite, without being able to hear people, I just never quite feel quite as connected to them. So for me, like hosting Twitter Spaces for Rainbow, like it really does, I feel like, give a really like strong point of connection between us and like the people that love our product. So I don't know. I think um, I really hope that like Twitter Spaces and live audio spaces become like a bigger part of like I guess the community playbook in Web3.
Yep, totally agree. I'm really excited for our first BAF office hours coming up, maybe in 2 weeks. We're working on it. So yeah, this makes me think of a very important aspect of community in Web3, which is access. Finding ways to give people access to different events, community spaces, knowledge, where they can interact with one another. And this can be very different from building community. This is kind of like how the NFT community focuses on. Whereas in DeFi, it's more about governance and directing cash flows to a treasury, making technical upgrades, thinking about ways of turning members into active members in their ecosystem. But but at the end of the day, at its core, there's this shared vertical of saying, if I create value for any community product or service, in our case, we're a nonprofit at BAF. If I am giving value, I should be able to capture the power of community there. Um, I also find it interesting how the role of community for each project evolves over time. It usually starts on a level of access, like I mentioned, where there's not much to do on governance standpoint. But as products become more successful and there's more at stake, governance becomes more front and center. So even in NFTs, on day one, you might change your PFP with no intent to be able to like use that as utility. But over time, these projects evolve and they start generating revenue. So they have a treasury that captures all that income they make, and there's more intent for members to participate in how those funds are managed. BAF actually is turning into a DAO where we're becoming governed. We are governed by our blockchain club leaders and giving our members more opportunities to be active and active participants in what we do. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty interesting. To paint a more vivid picture, I wanted to ask you guys what projects or people you think are the best at leveraging community in Web3, people you look up to and you think people here should follow on Twitter, for example, to learn more about community building.
Oh, this is so easy for me, especially because Nat is in the space. But definitely, I really, really appreciate like the transparency that both Netta and Dame bring to Twitter, and I think this whole idea of documenting your journey in public, it's really incredible. I think what could be considered just like a throwaway thought to you as someone who's like living the experience can be so informative and instrumental for someone else who isn't able, like, doesn't have access to that experience yet. And I think it's kind of crazy to think, if I really like think about it, how much of my confidence, say, in terms of like being able to do the job, was actually just me vicariously living through the experience of other people who have been brave enough to document, their journey in public. So yeah, I think that for me, like Nada, and then seeing Developer DAO evolve and grow, and Dame as well.
Yeah, those are, oh man, some great recommendations there. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple other folks that come to the top of my head. I mean, obviously, Alisha is one of the ones that I love. I love Alisha and what you do at ENS. But I also, I love Rafa over at Mirror. He's been doing some great stuff lately, along with Veronica, which is really cool. Mirror, if you're not aware, Mirror is this sort of Web3 blogging platform. You can find it at mirror.xyz. That's actually how I met a lot of people in this space when I first started. That was like where I started a blog and met a lot of folks. So yeah, that also is a great example of a really like vibrant community within the Web3 ecosystem. I think if folks like want to get a peek at what like a Web3 community looks like, that's like maybe less technical. Because I feel like a lot of these communities can be very technical at times, but the Mirror Discord and sort of the ecosystem around Mirror is just really, really vibrant and healthy and exciting, and lots of talented people building things. Like so many communities have actually grown out of things that started on Mirror. Um, so yeah, if you go into Mirror, like there's just so many like I wish it's not, I wish sometimes we could find like we could map out all the connections and like the spider web of connections that were created off of Mirror, because it would just be so immense. But yeah, definitely, folks should definitely check that out. They themselves, like Mirror is, a lot of places in this ecosystem use Mirror and its tools for some of their community efforts, whether it's publishing or crowdfunding or, distributing NFTs to members. Yeah, Mirror does a lot of work around that kind of stuff. So definitely check them out. But yeah, I think that's, yeah, just the first one came to my mind.
That's funny. I actually always say that to people as well when they're like, "Where can I find Web3 people?" Especially, if people are looking for community managers or just like people who might be interested in working in Web3. Like the alpha that I tell people is I feel like if you just like go and look in the mirror in the mirror Discord, that you will find like a ridiculous number of incredible people. Like
Yeah,
the ratio is insane.
yeah, and it's like it's never been easier to actually get involved there too. Like I mean, back when I got started, like it was very early and sort of beta access, and you had to sort of compete in this right race thing. Um, but now anyone can join. Like anyone can start publishing immediately. People can go into their Discord. So yeah, I don't know. That definitely is like I feel like the number one recommendation I have to folks who are getting into this space is check that out and make friends there.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. I think Twitters can also be super powerful. Um, this is funny because I remember seeing Dame's Twitter thread on how to break into Web3. And I know a question you get a lot is, how do I get into Web3 if I'm non-technical? But I'm still going to ask you this question once again
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this Twitter
totally.
space, because it's something that many people think about it or are worried about. We get this question a lot in our events, and I think having your perspective would be very interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, usually the thing you start out by telling people is there's lots of needs here for non-technical people, and I feel like it's growing every single day. And I think it can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Right now, I feel like the number one kind of role that obviously is non-technical and in very high demand does tend to be like community type roles. There are other things now popping up. A lot of these places are finally to the stage where they're hiring, marketers or growth people or writers and artists. You see some of these, places starting to have, artists in residence. Like I think that's a really cool phenomenon that's taking off in some places. You see that more in DAOs. Um, but but anyways, yeah. So my number one advice to a lot of folks really is to be active within the community and make friends here. Like just you have to like at the end of the day, in order to get very far in this space, you have to show that you are a sincere, honest like member of the community, and you want to be a part of it and contribute to it. I think you'll probably have a hard time here if you're looking to just get a job and it just be kind of like a job, like for both good and bad. I feel like jobs in Web3 tend to be more than just jobs. They definitely, like, the people in this ecosystem generally are coming here of their own will because they see something really amazing happening and they want to be a part of it. um so yeah, I think people can always sort of sense when people are genuine and when they aren't genuine. But like the practical way that plays out though is, Twitter is where most of the action happens in this industry, for better and worse. Obviously, Discord is another part of it, but I feel like Twitter is kind of the main. Discord is where you go into like specific communities, but Twitter is like where everyone sort of comes together and congregates. So if you want to, if you want to get a job in one of these places and start, transition your career here, it definitely like, my top advice is basically doing what I did, which is I jumped into the community. I started being in the space every single day on Twitter. I would tweet my thoughts as I was going along and learning, and I would share what I was learning with people. I would, respond to other people's tweets and their Twitter threads and ask questions and join Twitter spaces. And over time, people just started, seeing me in the space. They'd see my profile picture. They would recognize my voice in spaces. I started that blog, so people started, seeing some of the stuff that I was writing, um, and all that stuff just naturally led to relationships being built. And once I sort of had this was all done over a span of like 3 months. It wasn't like I was here a year before or anything. Like I was doing this over the span of like 2 to 3 months, and within that span of time, like I made a lot of friends really quickly. And that was just by making myself very like accessible and open to people, and being willing to just get outside of my comfort zone a little. And then when the time came that I was actually interested in getting a job here, it was actually very easy in some ways because I had lots of people here who knew me already, or at least enough to where I could tweet that I literally tweeted that I was looking for a job in this space because I wanted to join full time. And I had, all those people I made connections with retweeted my thread, and then their friends retweeted it. And, in the span of, I think 24 hours, I had, probably like a dozen interviews lined up. And yeah, and within a week, I was actually hired at Rainbow. So it was like a very fast process. A lot of these spaces are, a lot of these places are sort of non-traditional in like how they go about hiring people. So they don't have a lot of them don't have as many like hoops they're trying to jump through. And they're also looking for people very quickly a lot of the times. This space moves incredibly fast. And so people are trying to hire very quickly as well. So I think that's something at least tangentially to be aware of. But yeah, I don't know, just being, at the end of the day, it does come down to just being a real, genuine member of the community. And I think people see that.
Yeah, I think that relationship piece is really important. And the way that I think about the funnel, which is like getting to a point where you have a relationship with someone. And for me, that is definitely like some kind of voice call or video call, like being able to get to that place. And actually, so I tried to do this and like manufacture this by having a podcast, which is like a way to have it's like a pretty, I guess like a, a pretty high threshold to get over to just like have a conversation with someone. But I was absolutely willing to do that because, like I said, I really felt like I was starting from scratch. But yeah, so I think like that content creation piece and thinking out loud, Dame is the best at stream of consciousness tweets. I'm way too boomer for that, and I genuinely like even now feel like every time I tweet, I have to like create content and tweet, and so I really have to work on that. But yeah, whether it's a tweet or a blog or a podcast or whatever it is, I think that it also just this idea of like proof of work within the ecosystem, I think is really important. And it's one of my favorite things about this space, which is that any of your kind of credentials and signals that you were told, over the last couple of decades mattered, doesn't matter nearly as much or at all as what you do in the space. So a future employer or a community or whatever it is more likely to go look at your Twitter feed for the last like 3 scrolls than to go and look at your work experience for the last 10 years. And I really love that. And I think that's such an opportunity. And as uncomfortable as it is, I just think that ability to be really public about what you're going through, the thoughts that you have. Also, I think just like what really helps is this idea of, and I don't know whose original idea this is, but I've definitely heard it on a podcast somewhere, which is increasing the surface area for serendipity. And I just think that every time you tweet, every time you tweet, every time you DM someone, all you're doing is just increasing that surface area for serendipity. And I think if you speak to a lot of people in Web3, they'll kind of attest to the fact that there is like something magical here, and like serendipity just happens on such a regular basis. It's hard not to feel like you're standing in a vortex because I don't know, I like say stuff. Yesterday I said something about fellowships and DAOs having fellows. And then I literally sat down, that was on my tea break, and then I sat down at my laptop and I like went onto Twitter, and the first thing I saw was like VitaDAO post a tweet about how they're just starting fellowships, and I was like, what are the chances? Isn't that incredible? But like that sort of stuff literally happens daily. So, but for me, it all comes down to content creation, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's really amazing to hear your thoughts as people who have now experience in the space. Sometimes people trying to break into it from other backgrounds would have some self-doubt, would feel like an alien in the space, and there are so many resources for that. Like BAF, for example, creates educational content. We have these weekly events. We provide mentorship. I personally started working at BAF after a random call I had with Cameron, who's president of BAF, and now he's my mentor. And at that time, I wouldn't imagine that it's that easy to get mentorship or guidance from people who have experience. So definitely reach out. And what Alicia mentioned about engineering your luck and putting your name out there in the space, you can get a lot of opportunity there. I got more job offers on Twitter DMs than I ever got on LinkedIn or by applying. I didn't even apply to that many jobs. I think it's just when you put your work out there, you just attract opportunities. So yeah, attract,
Yeah.
not chase. I don't know how the quote goes, but yeah.
I think I think what you just said about what you just said about how sort of hiring and stuff in this space often works really just I think is a testament to the power of community here. I think in every other industry that I've ever worked in, any place that I've congregated as like a hobbyist, none of those spaces ever felt like you could tap into the power of a community quite like you can here. Like, as I said, like I just tweeted, a year ago that I was interested in joining this space and had all these people rally around me, many of whom I didn't even know. So there's also like a lot of generosity in this space too. Like I think, a lot of outsiders looking in, unfortunately, like you kind of see all the worst headlines possible and you miss all of the like the tip of the iceberg is like all the worst headlines people see in the media. But then, when you're actually in this space, there's just like so much like charity and generosity and love and community going on under the surface. And I don't know, I think that that's definitely like one of the things that I've thought about like as a community person in this space is I really want to focus more and more of my time trying to bring pieces of that like tastes of that community out into like outside of our community, because I think part of like a part of community building in a lot of ways is not only like cultivating this great thing inwardly for yourselves, but like also being like I think I've heard lots of people say this in the past, like no community is really an island. You're like a part of a larger community. You're really just like a sub community within a larger community. It's like the things that you do impact other communities, and I think it's really helpful to think about like Web3 or crypto or NFTs. Like we are a part of a larger community, and I think that we do need to like think about what we're representing, what we're showing off to the world. How can we do a better job at showing them the best parts of the space rather than us sort of sitting back and only focusing inwardly, because I think we are very inwardly focused at times just because of just and I think most communities are like that. So I don't know. I want to be more intentional about uh, outwardly help like giving people a taste of what is actually here.
Yeah, I love that. I think that in Web 2, people used to think that they're part of community, but in Web3, you actually feel that you're an active member and an important member of a community. And you get rewarded for that, not only like in terms of tokens, ownership, or whatever, but more importantly, you feel like you're part of something exciting, and it's very fulfilling to be part of this community of people building the future. And it is important to recognize that blockchain technology takes that does not only take coders and developers, but also designers, community managers, lawyers, economists, entrepreneurs, anyone with a passion for emerging tech. Like, please, if you're here in the audience and you're kind of hesitant about breaking into the space, you are needed no matter what background you're coming from. And there are people who would love to help you out. So many resources. Hop on these Twitter spaces, ask questions, connect with people. There's just so much to do. And yeah, I wanted to move on to my next question, which I think is very relevant these days. The way crypto just never sleeps. And like in the middle of all of this crazy, fast moving industry, how do you guys, as product managers who definitely spend more time on Twitter than the allocated time you have for your job. Just like I find myself replying on Discord for BAF like at midnight. It's like I can't help it sometimes. So, how do you deal with things like self-doubt in the early days in your journey, burnout, FOMO? This industry is literally running on FOMO. Like yeah, how do you manage that? How do you maintain a healthy lifestyle and a healthy mind uh, while managing communities?
Ooh, wow, that was a good question. I definitely am not perfect at it. I think, I think I'm, I've been here about a year now, and I'm still in some ways trying to figure out how to best do that. I think, you know, the things that have kept me like grounded and kind of sane as I've moved along have definitely been, uh, like one kind of embracing as much as I can uh like the natural flow of the space and also kind of the non-traditional like working dynamics and hours here. So in some ways, I like I might not be as busy during a traditional like work hour of a day as I, might have been in a traditional job. And so like I do find time all like in any time of the day to just take breaks and just step away and like do something fun or just relax. Like sometimes it'll be like 11 a.m. in the morning and I'll just be like reading something or listening to a podcast or drinking a cup of coffee and not really doing any traditional work, quote unquote. But like you said, like sometimes I might be, at 9 p.m. I might be responding to a tweet from our brand account or something. Um, but at the end of the day, like a lot of it is, you know, a lot of it is like choosing to find your sort of groove because I think you mentioned like how you spend a lot of time in Discord, and I'm sure Alicia spends a lot of time in Discord. I like because Discord is not actually a part of my job. Like I found like I choose not to spend as much time in Discord, even though a lot of people probably would. So like I kind of find like the ways that I can attempt to not do it all because so many people want to try to do everything. They want to be in all these communities. They want to be in every Discord. So like I'm rarely in Discord these days. I also like you mentioned FOMO and hype and all this stuff. I actually kind of like use that sense of FOMO and hype as like a negative signal to run away from something. Like if I see this especially in the NFT project world, like I tend to actively avoid like NFT projects that have this sense of like dramatic hype and FOMO around them just because it stresses me out and I feel like it drains me energy wise. So I don't know, to some degree, like you have this fear that you're going to miss out on something. But what I tell people is like, there's just so many opportunities here constantly that like you can choose not to go after the crazy hyped up stuff and there's still tons of stuff left over. So I don't know. I think that that's a helpful thing to think about as well. Is like it's just an overabundance of opportunity, and so you don't need to feel like you need to do it all.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a position where maybe in a month or two, I will be able to speak about having the contrast of both experiences. Um, but at the moment, as it stands, I am the potentially like one of the worst people in this space to talk to about balance. Also because I'm based in New Zealand at the moment, time zones are a bit whack, and so what is EST like in the middle of the day for most people is if I'm trying to be active, I kind of try to be around anywhere from 6 a.m. and yeah, I'm still up at midnight on Discord. And so this morning I didn't go to a meeting. I can see Jordan in the audience. I didn't go to a meeting because it was at 6 a.m. On a Saturday morning, and I said to kind of the lead of the meeting that I was trying to put some boundaries in place and not do meetings before 8 a.m. on a Saturday, which sounds probably sounds crazy in itself, but that's a pretty solid boundary for me. But this is the first day that I've done that, and tomorrow is a Sunday, and I will definitely try not to do work. But I guess without turning this into a therapy session, there are a couple things that are going on, to be honest. And I think one of them is that, because of my geography, I feel like I've watched tech evolve from afar for the last decade and felt really removed from it all, and especially from the opportunities that have been available to people, especially in the States. And so to have the opportunity to work, on ENS and within Web3 and full time, I kind of am so conscious that it's such a privilege that I really don't want to um, uh, I just don't want to let any opportunity kind of pass by, because I feel very, very blessed to have the role. And then there's this other aspect, which is these things that we're doing. A lot of the time, it's the first time that you're doing them, or you're very early, and so you get to take a lot of ownership and autonomy over the work that you're doing, which is so incredible from a growth perspective. And it just means that what I've learned in the last 3 or 4 months, it has completely outpaced everything I did in the last decade. And so that, from that perspective, it's really hard for me to say no to things. But I do know now that one of my non-negotiables is walking, and so just getting up early in the morning. I try to get up at 5-ish or by 5:30, and then just not look at my phone, get out the door, go for an hour walk, not look at any notifications. I seriously have to say to myself that even if everything is burning down, it will be fine for another 45 minutes. And just starting to kind of create space and realize what is self-imposed and what is whether the sky is actually falling. So yeah, so at the moment it's just walking is the only way that I find balance. But I've seen a couple of people have launched projects lately that keep you accountable with NFTs and things like that, and or locking up amounts of crypto and stuff like that. I feel like I'm kind of borderline needing to do some kind of intervention like that to get back on track. But yeah, it's really hard. I have no good answers, but maybe soon.
I think another thing I'd add is, if there are people who are thinking about getting into this space and this industry, working here, I definitely would spend time if you're interviewing with places or talking to places, really pay close attention to the kind of vibes and dynamics that you're sort of sensing from the people you talk to, the other people that work there. Follow the other employees and things on Twitter or something to get a sense of what it's like on the inside. Just because when I was interviewing at different places, I interviewed at probably a dozen different places, and I would say at least half of those places, I came away from the first interview and was like, this is not the place for me at all, because it seems like chaos. And so there's definitely a lot of places that I think, if you're not careful, you'll get into them, and it will probably suck you dry. And so I definitely, I definitely chose very carefully when I was joining where I wanted to join. Rainbow, I got really great vibes from them, and they seemed like the kind of place that was not going to be a workaholic sort of environment. I'm definitely more like Alicia. A lot of my pressure is self-imposed, and so I knew I didn't know I didn't need a high pressure environment on top of the self-imposed pressure that I put on myself. So yeah, I don't know. Just be very careful about that. The I've seen so many people join a role in in this space, and they'll last 3 months in it and be gone after that. So yeah, just as much as you can, be careful as you're starting, and make sure that you're making a wise decision for yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I also think it's interesting, like the importance of leadership around this. And I definitely like got a talking to, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Nick, Nick.eth was, I think, on one of our calls. He was like, I noticed that you posted on the forum at 12:30 at night, and then we're in a Twitter space at 7 a.m. And I was just wondering, that if you know that you don't have to work all the time. I know that, but it's just like it's really hard for me not to. But I think it did really help me actually, just knowing that it's just like a signal from, someone in a leadership position that this is definitely not the expectation. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. You can't be here long term, and kind of like I said, like no matter how big you think the fire is, like it's really important to sleep and like take time and do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I think that the nature of working in crypto, like it being remote, having distributed teams, having the quote unquote flexibility to work at your own time can be a blessing and a curse. And it is super important for you to also create space in your life to for random things to happen. Like you need free time. Like you cannot be creative if you don't have that space of no mind, like that space to be present, to like have other moments in your life that are not related to your job. Sometimes I catch myself talking so much about crypto and BAF to my friends, sometimes even trying to get them to work with BAF or volunteer and contribute to projects. And it did get to like a really bad point, but I'm trying to be more mindful of that. It's really important to prioritize your mental health. You will not do well at your job if you are not well mentally and physically. I also try to be more physically active. I can spend like 15 hours on my laptop if I don't make myself leave my room. So yeah, I think this is a very important topic. We actually have a Twitter space coming up next week on mental health in Web3, which is a whole topic on its own. Would love to learn more about people's experiences. I see a lot of tweets on my timeline of people experiencing burnout or imposter syndrome, and it's really nice to talk to other people who are struggling with the same thing. You're not alone. Also, what Alisha mentioned about leadership, that's super important. The culture of where you work is extremely important. Your team and how they support you, taking ownership of projects, making sure no one is working more, like way too much. That does come down to team culture and leadership. Um, so yeah, we have 2 minutes, 1 minute left. I would love to have some final thoughts from Alisha and Dame. I know this year is big for ENS and Rainbow. What are you excited about in the space, and what kind of things are you looking forward to work on to build your communities even more?
Well, I'm really excited about the ENS features that we have rolling out over the last couple of months, and also the fact that I've heard that the Rainbow team is going to be one of the first to implement like a lot of the cool stuff that's happening with ENS. So I think that the next 3 months will be really interesting and kind of put in perspective just how early we are, specifically in the ENS journey. And I think as well, just like the last couple of weeks, a taste of what a dip in the market has been like. I think it's kind of humbling for a lot of people in the space who, like me, have like really only been here on the back of the bull market for the last 12 months. And so I definitely do have context of like being in a bear in 2018. But yeah, I think that I'm really looking forward to potentially like what this space looks like without so much hype, and just like what the focus is and what we're building. And I think there is so much to do, and I'm what am I excited about? I think honestly I'm really excited. I was saying to Dame the other week when we chatted that I am excited that people like us are in positions where we get to like help people, other people who maybe wouldn't ordinarily get a shot, or were in a position like us. I think that's what I'm really excited about, to see in the next 6 to 12 months how different Web3 and like the communities that we're in look compared to, say, like the start of last year.
Oh, wow, that was a good ending there. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that what you just said. Yeah, I mean, like a product level, I am the most exciting thing that I'm excited about this year for Rainbow is definitely the stuff we're doing with ENS. I love that I know Alisha just because she's working at a project that I love and I'm very passionate about, and I love that we're now going to be incorporating that into Rainbow even more. We got these cool social profiles that'll be coming out later that are 100% based upon ENS. So we're very excited about that. Like an ecosystem level though, I'm excited to hopefully see like a different season this year. I think last year was a very distinct season in the ecosystem. I haven't been here super long, but I am looking forward to maybe a different season, whatever it is. I don't know what the market will do, but like I am very much hopeful that we'll have a different kind of season this year. I think I'm very hopeful that, like Alisha said, there will be more and more people here, more and more leaders here who will be be very like outspoken about making this space better and making the community better. I think we still have lots of issues and things we're working through. And I think if we're not careful, like if we don't choose to, stand up for our values and try to make this space better, I think that we're gonna get in a scenario in which like the negative stuff that bleeds out into the mainstream ends up like being more than all the positive stuff. So I don't know. I think I just am very like I really want that to be something that happens this year, is just more and more positive things coming out of this ecosystem that the mainstream can see.
Yep, super bullish on mass adoption. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm pretty sure everyone here got a lot of value of today's conversation. One line that we say a lot at BAF is win and help win, which I think encapsulates the power of community in crypto and Web3. So yeah, thank you guys for coming, and see you in our next Twitter space.
Thanks
Bye,
so
guys.
much for having us.
Thanks, Noor.
It was so fun talking.
Yeah,
Oh
it was
yeah,
amazing.
thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.